Hi, good afternoon. It's Jim from the Mavestar Observatory. Noaa is shortly about to release the new World Magnetic Anomaly map. And, they're going to do that, but again, like they did last year, and we're looking at, as you can see, January 2019, when this one was published, they're going to overlook and completely not talk about the white elephant in the room. What am I talking about? Well, we can see here that the symbol that they're using at the epicenter of the high intensity region, which is, as we know, lurching up over the south coast of Australia, is actually one of the positions of the dipole. And of course, Earth has two dipoles, a north and a south. But when we look at the magnetic map at the high intensity region, we'll see why I describe it as the white elephant in the room. As you can see, there is no dipole in the high intensity region. They've put the dipole right up there on the right hand corner at the top, and it's not in the center of the dipole. And you might be wondering why that is. Well, it's because there's another high intensity region over the northern hemisphere in Canada, and we know that this one's dissipating. But the truth of the matter is that this is not a very good representation of where the Earth's magnetic pole is, or the Earth's magnetic dipole is. You would expect it to be somewhere in this region, like when we show you on Google Earth, because if you put this location of the longitude and latitude in there, you'll see it represents the magnetic North Pole actually going back towards Canada. I did do a map, and I'll show you a bit later on where our pole that we measure at the Mavestar Observatory is in conjunction with Noaa's position, and you'll see that there is about 461 miles difference between the two for some reason. But nevertheless, you can see that they completely do not mention why over the northern hemisphere the magnetic dipole is not over or in the most highest intensity region. It's actually in between the two poles, over the Canadian pole and over the Siberian pole, and we know that the Siberian pole is a lot more stronger than the one over in Canada, and therefore, as you've seen with the experiments that I've conducted, the pole is somewhere in between and slightly closer towards Siberia than it is Canada, because the highest intensity region is over the northern hemisphere, over Siberia right now. And that's why we see over the southern hemisphere nothing challenging the highest intensity, and for that reason the dipole, or the south pole, is directly in the epicenter of the highest intensity regions. Now you might be saying, well, what's this then, Gene? Almost central of the map, measuring 29,000 nanoteslas. Well, that is the South Atlantic anomaly, and right in the epicenter of there is where we want to put one of our magnetometers in January. And because there's no continent really in between the South Pole right at the centre of that strong epicenter and Australia, we're going to put it right in South Australia, as far south we can get it, and we'll see where we get, what readings we get off that, because obviously if that pole is moving as we've predicted up towards the equatorial region, then if we put a magnetometer there, we should see the intensity increasing as it comes up closer and closer to the equatorial region. Another thing is, if we put one of our muon detectors there, we should see less hits. Where it'll be different in South America, Brazil, we'll see more hits as that epicenter of low intensity increases in strength. But that is why we've got a pole at the center of the epicenter on the southern part of this Earth, and that's why we don't have one in the epicenter of the highest magnetism over the northern hemisphere. Guys, it's been a bit of a day really. It's been a solid 4 hours just looking at magnetic declination, inclination, and the declination with respect to geomagnetic North Pole. For me, I've been doing a lot of equations, and also on another map, I can click anywhere on the map and I can get the declination for that region. And it's a very difficult topic really, because declination will be different from anywhere on this planet. We had to set the declination up on our magnetometers here in the UK to allow for that deviation. We've also got a magnetosphere generator, and because we're not actually interested in the position of the magnetic North Pole, we're only interested in the XY x-axis, so we only deal with that part of the equation when we're trying to work out the magnetic field strength in that region. But basically the ones that we've got worldwide are only measuring really the highest intensity, so they're programmed to read just the XY and leave the Z-axis out, because we're not interested in where the positions are of the magnetic North Pole from where we've put our magnetometers globally. So that's why we only are interested in the intensity strength in those regions. So let's have a look at this map and just show you in conjunction to where we've placed the magnetic North Pole as of the last measurement that we made. And of course in 4 days time we'll pop the SD cards out and we'll do a new magnetic North Pole location. So first of all, let's have a look at the map, and you can see where Noaa's put the magnetic dipole and where ours is in conjunction with that. So just before we get on talking about this, I did forget briefly, you know, we've got to really thank you know, just a few people on this channel, in particular one Doug, who not only throws fundraisers for the observatory, but he also regularly every fortnight donates at least a couple of $100 for us at the observatory. So you know, I can't thank you enough, Doug. You know, you are almost single-handedly keeping, you know, the observatory afloat on your own. And you know, I'm really grateful for the help that you give. And you know, occasionally we get people like Alex, and you know who you are, who would throw in £500 as well here and there. And we've also got our patrons who, you know, every month, you know, build up a small kitty, and you know, again, that keeps us going. But there's always costs involved. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you guys don't see, and it requires a hell of a lot of time. And you know, these people needed to be thanked for that. And you know, if I can only encourage just a few more people to get on board with them and help them push the cart as well as me push the cart, you know, we won't have to keep saying it so much, you know. But it's unfortunate that this is a public funded observatory, and you know, at the end of the day, guys, we do cover one of the most important topics of our era. You know, this is the most important topic of mankind because of its rarity. And you know, it, just to put it in perspective, 780,000 years ago this Earth went through this very same thing that we are right now, and it's causing us some unusual occurrences like magnetic dipoles out of the high intensity regions or the high intensity epicenters, like we can see. So you can see Noaa's dipole where they've put it, and ours is 461 miles further away from theirs. If we have a look on Google Earth, we'll just put that into perspective and we'll see where they're putting theirs, because I know it's a little bit odd, but what you've got to remember is this map has been laid out flat. It's not globally, and when we look at Google Earth, that is obviously globally, and we can put the grid back on there, and we can, you know, I've done this already for us so that we can see how far apart ours at the Mavestar Observatory is compared to theirs. And we've got like a good couple of years, you know, backing up where our position is, that you can see on Pole Shift News, and you'll see that it's been gradually increasing from 10 degrees where we calibrated it at, and since that day it weren't ever calibrated again. There was no need to, and there's a good reason I did that, guys. So you know, what I'm saying is that whatever deviation the pole has done from then till now has totaled just a little over 3 degrees of movement. So that gives you an idea. And we are still tracking the magnetic pole move towards Siberia in the same virtual line that it has done since it up and left Canada nearly 100 years ago. So you know, I'm confident that ours is accurate. I don't know why Noaa has put theirs, you know, so far away from the point, but if you have a look, theirs is almost on the rotational axis of this planet, or where the GPS would say, you know, geomagnetic north is. And that is just to do with where we've put you know, the Meriden line, which, as you can see, goes through England, and I forget the name of the place now where the actual Meriden line runs through. I think it's what's the name of the... Anyhow, it's green something. You know, I'm sure someone in the comment section will tell you guys where that is. But yeah, let's go and have a look at Google Earth, and we'll just put this into comparison where they're saying the North Pole is compared to us. But the main thing I wanted to draw to your attention is it's not in the epicenter over Siberia, and the reason for that is because we've got another high intensity region over the North Pole, and it is splitting the pole, or the magnetic pole position, between these two high intensities, and the weakest one out of the two is Canada, and it's estimated another 4 years before Canada's intensity completely decreases. As I've showed you in the map, over a space of about 7 years it has lost an intensity of about 50%. So let's get on with it. So as you can see, the pin that is associated with that position that Noaa have just put on their 2019 January map showing the dipole of the Earth, or the magnetic North Pole, it is in this position here, and it's not far, as you can see, away from where the British Geological Survey said it was in 2015. Noaa, as you can see, is another pin that Noaa said at 2016 was the North Pole, and again at the bottom of the screen you can see where they're saying it was in 2015. So, you know, in 4 years what Noaa are stating is that it's probably moved, you know, we'll measure it, we'll put the tool on there and measure how many miles it's moved backwards. So it's moving westerly from 2015 to January 2019, it's moved 207 miles. So you want to see where we've put it and how far Noaa are actually out. So if I go to the very last marker, roughly where we are, and just put the measuring tool on that, again just doing it roughly, to January 2019, here we go, puts us about 463 miles, or 461 miles, like I said earlier, out between the two. Another thing to remember is Noaa have put their reading, let me just get rid of the measuring map, very close to the actual geographic North Pole, but I'll just measure it so you can see. Let me put the grid on and you'll see where geographic North Pole is. There you go. So we've got Noah's pin, which is here, and if again we put the measuring tool on, Noah's actual, where are we? Here we go. So Noah's pin from geographic North Pole is about again 283 miles away from that. Also in the geographic North Pole, and we know that it's the geographic North Pole because the icebreaker ship Victoria regularly takes tourists there. It's the Russian nuclear breaker ship. You can find about that on YouTube. Be an interesting holiday to have, to go to the North Pole. But when you're talking about the North Pole, and I have showed in the captain's room on the ship, or the helm, at the helm, the navigation system there that's using GPS, it shows you 90 degrees. Well, 90 degrees is the geographic North Pole, not the actual magnetic pole. And you know, so we can't really rely on the icebreaker to tell us where the magnetic North Pole is, because you know it changes frequently, and it could be, you know, 8 miles away one day from another. So as you'll see, 70 degrees is the highest they go in latitude on the chart, but 70 degrees on the later model, the 2020 model, this epicenter of high intensity is a lot lower than what we see is right now. We can almost see the top of the inner ring on the highest intensity region. So again, why they haven't included you know, the actual magnetic dipole on this chart is a little bit strange, because perhaps it's wondering a lot at this point in time. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over the next few months, guys, and whether they're going to show us the picture of the dipole or the magnetic north pole and its position. But even if they do, it seems to be, for some reason, 461 miles out from where we're putting it, and the reason for that is because there is two high intensity regions. One's weakening as the one in Canada weakens, so the pole moves further towards Siberia, and the faster, you know, the weakening takes place, the more that pole will migrate towards Siberia quicker. One thing I can say about all this that is taking place with regards to the weakening magnetosphere and the low solar output is that we are getting more cosmic radiation inbound, as I showed in yesterday's video, and this will lead to, you know, health risks to not just ourselves but to all biodiversity on this planet. And you know, the only way we can keep a track on what's going on now in that low intensity and the high intensity over South Australia is by building our equipment. And right now we're on a back order, as you can see from this letter from Arrow, which is the suppliers for the photosilicon multipliers. So it's in their hands as to when they can get hold of these components that we can then get on and build, you know, 2 more muon detectors to go out into those regions. What I can do for now is just build all the other parts of the circuitry, and as soon as we do get the order for the silicon multipliers, then just put them to you know, the PCBs, and then bolt the cinculate crystals on top and then wrap them, and then they're pretty much finished, ready to go out. So that's all I can do at the moment, and that's exactly what I will do. But I will do my best to see what I can do to speed things up with regards to this. But other than this, the company are happy to send out 3,000 silicon photomultipliers, but obviously, you know, that's going to be at a cost that is just well without our reach. You know, we're just never going to be able to, and we don't want that many in any case. You know, we're not building a new research facility like down in Antarctica right now, the Ice Cube Research Laboratory. We don't need that many. So you know, we just got to wait. You know, this is the way it is these days. You know, companies don't want to deal with the individual and small observatory like ours. They want, you know, great big orders for these things, and because they're state of the art, you know, they can afford to do it, I suppose. You know, there you go. So guys, I'll leave it here. You know, some interesting things discussed in this video. I hope you've found something interesting in there, and if you want to support our observatory at one of the worst times of the year, you know, the links are down there. And for those that have already supported us, you know, I just want to say big thanks to you. Okay, as always guys, bye for now.